of wines and a sensory evaluation, and I will let him dive into his background and story. But joining me is my business partner Rebecca here. We've got Raina, our culinary director, and then James, a good friend, who's going to be doing a lot of on-site fun wine collaborations with Ilona Thomson of Palate Exposure. So Hobie, let's talk about this. Thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's a real honor to be here with you guys. I think what you're doing here is so cool. And we're honored to be a part of it. We're from the Petaluma area, so we're right west of the Napa Valley. And being able to come over here and collaborate with you guys is just incredible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So to dive in, tell us about how SensePoint was created and your story especially, which I think is fascinating.
Thank you. No, it's it's very exciting for us. We're entrepreneurs right now, starting a couple of companies, but I'll tell you a little bit about my background before we do that. So I've been totally blind since birth. Really never been able to see anything, never any light or anything like that. So I've had a unique perspective, I won't say enhanced perspective because that wouldn't be right, but a unique perspective of the world, just understanding how things fit together and really using my senses maybe more than other people would. I think it's a misconception when someone says, oh, you must have super heightened hearing because you can't see. And really, that's not necessarily true. I think I just know how to use my ears a little more than other people might, because I use them all the time for my survival as a blind traveler and as a blind person in society. I fell in love with chemistry through a really excellent high school chemistry instructor, and ultimately ended up at UC Davis, where I got an undergraduate degree in chemistry, focusing on organic chemistry. And it was really interesting because I knew that I was quite a nerd back then, and I guess still am. Knew that I really wanted to attend graduate school, but didn't know how chemistry was going to work. So I had the strange combination of being a nerd who never wanted any sighted assistance. I wanted to do as much as I could on my own. So to make a long story short, I also got a United States history degree focusing on sort of conspiracy theory history post-World War II. Really interesting topic, maybe at this time.
Don't ask me about history. I can tell you all about food and wine, but history.
That's great. So I didn't know if I was gonna have to fall back on I don't want to call it falling back on history, but it was a field where I saw that I could study without needing a lot of sighted assistance. It was at that time when I was ready to send applications out to various graduate schools around the state of California in history departments, when I met the person who would become my graduate advisor, Dr. Dean Tantillo. And I then ended up going to graduate school at UC Davis and getting my PhD back in 2016 at the end of the year. What's interesting about that, though, is that doing the chemistry for me wasn't necessarily the hard part. The hard part for me as a blind guy studying chemistry was really thinking about piecing everything together, getting the information from the very visual medium by which it's presented out to into my mind so that I can study the chemistry. Dealing with the chemistry, actually solving the problems was not hard, but then getting my results and my data back out into the scientific world in the visual medium that they appreciate did become a challenge. So, I decided, by the way, if you get a PhD and then realize you want to, become an entrepreneur, make sure your PhD is in something like business or economics or something like that. That's what I like to say. No, I mean, I'm happy I got my degree in chemistry, but it was really interesting because ironically, concurrent with my starting my chemistry degree, I actually was called by Francis Ford Coppola and his team to help them innovate a truly blind wine experience. And when Francis Ford Coppola calls, you kind of say yes and then realize what you said yes to afterward. But what was great about that collaboration is he really let us, and my business partner and I, take the reins with innovating and designing those tastings to really make them not about the blindfold, but about the wine and about the conversation at the table. And that's what tonight's going to be about. We're going to show you one of these experiences, but it's not about the blindfold. What it's really about is that using the blindfold as a lens to deepen and broaden the conversation that we can all have as a group around this table. And that conversation will obviously include conversation about wine and food pairings and how we relate to the wine. But the idea of the experience is not to be about the blindfold. Oh, isn't it fun? We're being led by a blind person with blindfolds on. This is so great. That's not what we're doing today. We're really here to have an in-depth wine tasting and chat about wine. But what's interesting about that work with Francis Ford Coppola is it started as a hospitality experience for our wineries up in Geyserville. every third month, so every quarter. Then became a once a month thing, and then became a once a week thing. It's like, well, I'm trying to do graduate school in this, but it worked out okay. In 2012, I was Francis Ford Coppola's sales team picked up on it and said, hey, it would be really interesting to bring these out to our, to either prospective clients or already strong clients, just to show them something really new and different. And we ended up doing that. Gained popularity throughout their clientele throughout the United States, and ended up doing a lot more sensory work in beer and spirits and also food. But then realized, as Justin and I sort of have known each other, my business partner Justin Blandingham was also here, co-founded SensePoint with me about 2 years ago. While I was in graduate school and he was managing a chain of Ace Hardware stores out in Davis, we both sort of said, maybe we want to start our own company. Maybe we want to do our own thing. And we had a lot of good ideas of what we wanted to do in terms of ways of getting people to view the world differently. And we both said, all these people are putting so much attention of sensory into food and drink. There's no reason that sensory and a really deep understanding of sensory and how we can use sensory innovation as a lens to create and design and develop brands. There's no reason every industry doesn't need some sense of sensory, no pun intended there. A lot of our clients have been in the food and drink industry. So we launched SensePoint in March of 2017. And though a lot of our clients have been in the food and drink industry, a lot of them have been far outside the food and drink industry. One of our clients was in the tech industry, and we basically set up an entire tech day because they couldn't, they're a large international tech company down in the Silicon Valley, who asked their glass supplier to provide them with a glass that might feel more silky, right? And the glass company said, oh, we don't really know how to talk about silky glass. And their client said, or their vendors, their client said, we don't know either. All we know is we want silkier glass. So can you help us figure out how to understand glass better? They ended up calling us and saying, how can we describe glass texture? So we put together ultimately a whole tech day where we paired glass texture on the fingertip with various foods, so fruits, cheeses, and at the very end of the day, wines. And we brought through about 500 people who at the end of the day had a really strong understanding of what 4 very unique glass surfaces felt like, because we related them to something more tangible, and ultimately they were able to make a selection from among those 4 as to the glass that they chose to use in their next edition of smartphones and trackpads on their laptop computers. So it was a great deal of fun for us to really come into that zone and ultimately help them be more innovative about what they do and think about what they do differently and give them creative and useful solutions to drive their success forward. And that's what SensePoint has become over the past, I would say, 6 months. We really evolved a lot from saying that we design experiences and products and we use sensory innovation to understand that we use sensory innovation as a tool to help people do what they do best. So we've done a lot of work with sales and marketing teams, coaching them on how to listen and really how to sense those who they work with. We do a lot of brand development work on basically building brands from the ground up, from both large and also very small startup companies. We do a lot of experience design like the one you're going to see right now, as putting together experiences, not just for the sake of an experience, but to get everyone thinking differently about what they know and do best. So that's really the goal here with a lot of the work that SensePoint does. Because I love being an entrepreneur and I love working hard. Justin and I are in the process right now of launching Hobie Brands, which is going to be we're really developing this brand on the principle of utmost truth, utmost honesty, and we're applying the full SensePoint spectrum of design and brand development to the Hobie Brands products. Our first products are going to be vodka and gin, but we're planning to do a premium wine, a series of wines, both from Napa and Sonoma, in the next 3 to 5 years. And we really want this to be an endorsement, a symbol of authenticity, a symbol of these brands who may even use our seal of approval can see, okay, this is the truth. This is authentic. This is a wonderful product. Because that's, with SensePoint as well, we really believe in providing people with the utmost truth and the utmost honesty when it comes to an understanding of products and experiences and creativity.
I love it, and I think you hit the nail on the head of the brand awareness, right? Because we at the studio by Feast of Ford is, this is completely experiential from the moment you walk inside our doors, from everything you taste, smell, experience, look at, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
It's all completely experiential from a brand awareness perspective, and so this is, I think, wonderful that you've put together. And creating the brand Sense Point too, from an education of creating and developing brands and making them aware.
Well, Katie, what I really love out here, thank you, and by the way, what I really appreciate that you guys do out here so well is you partner with people. Everything in here is a partner of yours. It's this collaborative sort of cohabitation idea and environment that I think lends itself so beautifully to this industry that's already flourishing. So I think it's great to find people to partner with and to find people to connect with, and you've really set the gold standard for that.
Well, you're going to set the gold standard for tasting, so we're ready.
All right, so what you guys have in front of you is a blindfold and 4 glasses. Now, because I know that you guys like to know the answers and maybe like to cheat a little bit, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put the blindfold on right now. And we're going to talk for a minute about wine while our lovely Angel comes around and pours the 4 wines that we'll be tasting in our glasses. So you'll smell wine being poured in front of you, you'll hear it, but as tempting as it is to taste and experience and get excited about, let's refrain from sipping until we're all together. So we're sitting in the heart of the Napa Valley. I mean, that's where we are. We all have images that pop into our minds when we think of the Napa Valley, when we think of Napa Sonoma, and ultimately when we think of wine country, right? These are the images that pop into our minds. What do you guys think? What are the images that you think of when you hear the word wine and Napa Sonoma? What are some buzzwords?
A good time.
A good time. I'm glad you didn't say a hangover.
Well, there's been a couple of them.
What about you, Katie?
Yeah, to smell is
Yep.
the first thing that comes to mind for me. I think of the seasons and the dirt and the mustard popping up and whatever it is from the ground up if it's rained.
Absolutely.
I think of the seasons.
No, absolutely. It's really quite incredible. And that's one thing that's so amazing here is the seasons that we experience. There really are 4 seasons within one, I would say, in Napa. Justin and I were just talking about this, how beautiful the mornings are in the Napa Valley. And I think one thing we all can do, it doesn't matter whether we live in Napa or Sonoma or Wisconsin or Ohio or any other place in the world, really. I urge you all to use your senses more. Open your windows more while you're driving or while you're riding your bike or while you're doing whatever you do well. And just allow yourself to fully experience and fully immerse yourselves in whatever experience whatever your surroundings are non-visually. I think one of the things that we do so commonly when we have eyesight is we use that eyesight to our over-advantage, right? We use it so much that our other senses don't really know how to take information in. They're always taking information in from our surroundings and creating ways of understanding the world, most definitely. But I think it's very subconscious how our minds do this, and that's one space that SensePoint plays a lot, is with designing products that sort of take that subconsciousness to the next level and allow us to focus in on the way that we think about those other senses, or that we don't think about them. We like to make things just that perfect blend of all of our senses, so that you don't notice something that's pokey at the bottom of a shampoo bottle, or when you're trying to open that next box that you get from an online retailer. It's easy, it's very well sealed until you attempt to open it, and you don't need a knife. It's easy to open. So these are all things that we work with when we think about our senses. And one thing that I like about talking about using our senses in nature and using our senses to experience wine, other than vision, is that we're able to re-stimulate those other senses. It's often, I think of it like a language, right? If we know a second language, but we don't use it a lot, we tend to lose vocabulary and ability to conjugate verbs and what have you in that other language. And I think our other 4 senses, separate from eyesight, suffer from that a little bit. And there are plenty of reasons we could go into that I'll spare you from now of why eyesight is the least vulnerable sense, and then I think hearing is a little bit less or a little more vulnerable. Touch is next, and then smell and taste, I think, are the most vulnerable senses, where we actually have to make something a part of us to really identify with it and connect with it. But the thing that comes into my mind when I think about wine in California and wine anywhere in the world, it's a constant, and that is that wine is an art, right? Now, when I say wine is an art, the question is bared of, well, what is art? And I know plenty of art historians, philosophers, and artists themselves have been arguing about this for millennia. So I won't try to tell you what they think art is, but I'll give you my definition. Art is anything that grabs our attention when we're going about our day-to-day lives and makes us think, oh, wow, that's really interesting. It catches us. Maybe it's negative. Maybe it's, oh, God, I hate that painting that whoever hung on their wall. It's hideous, right? Or maybe it's, oh, that's just gorgeous. Wow, man, that's really stunning. Or maybe it's a beautiful piece of music we hear. But I think it's important to think about the fact that the culinary arts and wine in particular, that has so much, we affect it, we coax it so much with what we do, the human side of it, but it also only has two ingredients, grapes and yeast. So I think it's this brilliant marriage of science and terroir blended with just an incredible amount of science or of art that the winemaker puts into it, right? And the vineyard manager puts into it. So we often ask this question of what is terroir, which we will not get into today because it's confusing, but is it the place or is it the people? And I think it's the place, but I think the people then add their own sort of brand creativity and what we might call a human sense of terroir. But I really think just like art, the easiest wines to produce are the worst tasting, and the wines that have the most tender love and care put into them are the easiest drinking. Like a book like a college essay, when you wrote your college essay, the night before it was due, starting at 3 a.m., it's not going to read that well. Maybe with a few glasses of wine under your belt, it's not going to read as well as if you spent the 3 or 4 weeks to write that essay.
Did you do that? Is that why you're laughing?
That's right. I sensed that. Yep, there you go. That's good. I think we've all done that. But no, it's just like art, where the hardest thing to produce tends to be the easiest to consume, right? I think we should all think about that. The wines that we're trying are all very small production, and so much TLC has gone into them, right? So it's really important to think about that and to talk about that as we taste. Next, I think a lot of people are fairly intimidated by wine, but what I have to say there is that we have to remember that wine comes from the earth, right? It starts with farming. It starts with growing something, having it sprout out of the earth, and having it grow delicious fruit. So wine should not be as intimidating as we make it. We shouldn't need someone to tell us which wine to have with which food. The only way we can get good at drinking wine is by practicing, by trying different things. And when I say that wine is truly subjective, I mean it. Do you think the grapevines in the Tocolone vineyard are sitting there thinking, hey, I'm going to produce fruit that's red, that's going to get 97 points from Robert Parker this vintage? No, they're thinking, hey, I want to be red so that birds eat me and then digest me and spread my seeds around. Like, that's why they want to be bright red and deliciously fruity, right? So wine is really of the earth, and we've made it into something that is very elite, and I think that's, the marketing here is absolutely incredible, but it doesn't have to be that way. So remembering, I always like to remind myself to hearken back to the very humble roots of wine, and as I enjoy it with a group of people like you all. Thirdly, I think it's very important to say that we don't need to see to enjoy a great deal of life, right? We use eyesight, I should say, for 85 to 90% of the information we take in from our surroundings, right? That means that we have 4 perfectly good senses, only responsible for about 10 to 15% of the information we take in. And I think we should use those other senses more. And this is just a little way to encourage that and to show you how wine might be different when we take away that eyesight. I'm not going to say it should be better, but it'll be different. And we're going to move on, before we taste wine, to a journey of enhancing our aromatic vocabularies. I want to take us down a little aromatic lane here, okay? Now, let's say I were to hand you a fig, a delicious, ripe fig, right off of a tree. You can use all 5 senses. You can look at it, listen to it, touch it, smell it, taste it. I think all of you in the room would be able to identify that fruit that I handed you as a fig, right? But if I took that same fig and blended it up to a puree and added it into a wine glass with a little bit of white wine on top so it was volatilized up to your nose, handed it to you and asked you what it was, but maybe you shouldn't look at it, I think it would be a lot harder to identify that aroma as a fig. And my point is that we're all blind to tasting wine, right? it would be great if you opened a bottle of wine and it said, hey, I smell like blackberries, now go impress all your friends. They don't do that. We have to be good at using those other senses, our aromatic and flavoral vocabulary, to describe the aromas, flavors, and textures of everything we embark on. So if we could pass the first aroma around, we're going to start it with James. And by the way, I know you guys like to know the answer right away and be know-it-alls, so if you smell it, don't shout it out until everyone's had a chance to smell. And Katie, by the way, to your right, you can just set those aroma glasses down. Yeah.
And for those of you watching, this is kind of just a little preview and a taste per se of what we plan on doing with Hobie on an ongoing basis, not filmed. I mean, certainly, I suppose a corporate group could do this with us and film it to educate and you know, kind of elevate the experience. But we wanted to show you tonight, obviously, how educated and what Hobie has to offer, and Sense Point, of course, but in addition to that, for you to kind of get a feel and taste of what we can do here from this blind perspective, right? And I think that what Hobie has to offer, you've done so many TED Talks around the country,
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, this guy doesn't toot his horn like we want to toot. All right. Am I okay?
You can smell that.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you with the glass.
No. You handed me something, and so I took it. I never turned that down.
There you go. Those can just go down to your right. But yeah, no, we're really excited just to give a little sneak preview of some of the work that we hope to do in collaboration with Feast It Forward and all the great work that you guys are doing here. And you're only a year old. Look at what you've done.
Yeah.
It's you guys all should be.
And I can't drink that?
You can if you want, but I don't take any claim to whether you're going to get a tummy ache later. So what'd you all smell there? James, you're a wine guy. What did you get there?
The citrus.
Yeah.
The citrus.
Right lemon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's awesome. That's really wonderful, and that's exactly what that is. That's a lemon zest, the delicious essential oil from lemon zest.
Yeah.
So we chemists are very boring. We call that molecule lemonine because it smells like lemon.
Lemonine.
All right, let's do number 2.
And thank you to our wine partners. We
Thank
have
you so
Oberon
much.
and Gibbs.
But we don't want to give them away.
Well, no, I'm not gonna.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say the varietal. I'm just
Okay,
gonna
okay,
speak
okay.
to the brand. So Oberon, Gibbs, and BY's Vineyards. They are our official partners here
Absolutely.
at the studio by Feast It Forward. And in addition, Stotzel, and then My Wine Society, who is a very informative app that we are starting to work with on a global level.
My Wine Society. I've seen what they've been doing. It's so cool. So cool.
Yeah. I'm not getting much.
This one's a little more subtle.
Yeah.
And so when you do these on a larger scale with a corporate group, would this be at a kind of family style table and you would be in the middle?
No, we do a lot of classroom style.
Okay.
We do a lot of, basically filling auditoriums. So we've done this for as many as 800.
Gotcha.
And we just have a set of many angels and, it works out
Yeah,
great.
I would say.
It'd be a little
there's
bit of a big
people.
table. Okay, here's this glass for you, Katie. I know what it is, so I took a little smell. That's why I didn't spend as much time with it, but this one is a little bit more of a challenge to identify. What'd you guys get here? What are you smelling?
Chocolate.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Two people said chocolate. That's awesome. Anyone else?
I did get a vanilla-y more.
Yes, okay. So Raina says vanilla. You guys say chocolate.
Yeah.
This is actually vanilla.
Oh.
So what we've done is we've taken, nicely done. So we took vanilla bean and actually ground it up into this glass, into the base white wine that we're using here. And what's interesting about this aroma, so I like to use vanilla because oak is probably the leading natural source of vanilla. And when we soak wine in oak, which we tend to do for a lot of Chardonnays and pretty much all red wines, we tend to bring out that really vanilla character. By the way, chemists call vanilla vanillin. So again, we're not very creative. Now, go ahead and start with number 3, Justin. But the thing that I'll say, those of you who smelled chocolate actually experienced what I call an olfactory illusion. So chocolate is one of the only ingredients that we use all the time, that we engage with, that pretty much every bite you've ever taken, I can pretty much guarantee has vanilla in it. Chocolate, cacao butter, vanilla, and sugar are the main 4 ingredients that go into chocolate. So we've grown to smell chocolate and taste chocolate and think of that as vanilla. So then when we smell pure vanilla, we often think of chocolate.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Or maybe we're just craving chocolate too.
That's it.
Oh, am I? No.
It's coming to you,
Sorry.
Nick.
Have you incorporated food like
Totally.
from a? Because
Do
Raina,
that all
that's
the time.
something would be really fun to actually put out.
We have done that
Plates.
in little clock positions so people know where the food is. No, that's a great thing, and we actually do that more often than not these days. You got it, Becky?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This one's hard too.
Yeah.
James, do you know this one?
No, this was a more subtle, but more maybe slightly savory.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take it from you. You got it? Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't
Very
enough
nice.
to drink this one.
No. It's very strong.
It's like currant, raisin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like cinnamony.
Something soaked in.
Yeah.
I smell tequila.
Yeah. There you go.
I smell whiskey or something.
I do too. You're spot on. Bourbon, tequila. Yep.
Yeah.
So it is. This
What
is
is it?
actually wine that has been soaked with French oak chips that have a medium toast on them. And the reason I love this aroma so much is it allows us to really get a grasp and an understanding of what oak smells like by itself. Absolutely. All right, number 4.
I feel like we need to get a waterproof mascara sponsor for all the women that do
I
this.
think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Tell me, I put on a blindfold with my
You know,
mascara.
we can get a blindfold sponsor too.
There you go.
I think that'd be
We were
great.
actually talking about with March Madness. Maybe we would
Right.
have to put our teams that we wanted to win on our blindfold.
There you go. I think that'd be awesome. Who are you rooting for?
I'm winning, by the way.
Yes,
I
thank
know,
you for
by
mentioning
4
that
points.
again
Oh,
for the 20th
man.
millionth time.
Raina, who's your team?
I think of Michigan State, so I think I'm going to have
Uh-huh.
Duke.
I'm a Duke fan. Duke's in my final.
I smelled Duke in that last glass.
Yeah. By the way, the other reason I like to use that oak is because it's got that really oaky, beautiful aroma. We often open wines and say, oh man, that smells like an oak bomb, and we don't really know what we're smelling when we talk about oak, and this gives us a good idea of just what oak smells like.
This one was interesting.
This next one's, I think,
Yeah.
easier, but it's like either you love it or you don't.
Yeah,
So
like it in wine,
star
hate
anise
it outside.
or-
That's what I'm smelling, star anise.
Yeah.
Well, hey, come on, I haven't gotten there yet.
Sorry.
Damn
Don't
it.
toss something in my
Sorry.
head.
What do you think?
Oh, is it there?
Oh, sorry. I'm a terrible blind partner. I'm a horrible blind partner. Literally, I just set it down like, there you go, Katie. Yeah.
Do I smell? What do you
Oh man, that's so funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say licorice.
Yeah, totally. You guys are all spot on. And this is a smell that I tend to get in a lot of deep Napa Sonoma red wines. Just that beautiful, what I call it a spice box. That mixed with a little tobacco, mixed with a little bit of cardamom.
Oh, yeah.
Man, it's just full of it, full of those spices. And by the way, did you guys like the licorice or not like the licorice?
Is it red or black? I don't
It's
know.
black licorice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't mind licorice
You don't
on
mind
some
it?
things.
No, okay.
Not,
Star
I would,
anise?
I would
Not
not
my
appreciate it in my
favorite,
wine. Let's put it
but
that way.
yeah.
What about like digestifs, that sort of thing? Do you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people just
Yeah.
hate anise in general. They can't stand it. So I'd love for all of us to go around the table just briefly, and I'd like you to tell me one thing that you love about wine. So James, let's go ahead and start with you. And if you want to say a little bit about, just briefly about your industry and that sort of thing, and how you got here, and what you love about wine.
Well, I mean, from the very start, I only had my first glass of wine 3 years ago. And,
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And just what amazed me is how different the taste and the aroma was.
Yeah.
That I could love one and not the other.
Right.
And detecting one didn't necessarily reveal what the other would be.
Sure.
It's just so many characteristics going on at the same time.
No, absolutely. Cool. How about you, Raina?
I think from a a small age, my mom always enjoyed a glass of red wine, and it always provokes this memory of just family and food.
Yeah.
And I went into the culinary industry, I think, because of that. And
Right.
that's my favorite thing in the world, is just to sit around with friends and family and drink great wine, and sometimes not so great wine. And,
Right, exactly.
and
And
eat
talk
food.
about it. So your background is culinary.
Yes.
How about you, Becky?
Well, I didn't start out drinking wine at a younger age. We didn't start until later in life. We mostly, in our family, we grew up drinking beer with friends. But wine has grown into something that I've loved, and like Raina said, sharing it with friends and
Absolutely.
family, and getting together over a glass or a bottle or two of wine is probably the best thing about it, whether
Amazing.
it's good or whether it's bad.
Right, it's the people, and it makes a Tuesday night, you're here, a celebration.
It helps dealing with children sometimes.
I've heard this.
All the time.
I've heard this. For me, I love pretty much everything about wine, but I would say more than anything, for me, it's the sense of belonging and the sense of science, and how science can take something very humble as the grape, the ripe grape, which tastes like sugar and a bunch of overwhelming tannins when you chew down on the seeds, and turn it into something as brilliantly complex as what you're about to try. Katie, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Raina and Becky said. I think that it brings back family and friends, and what it evokes from a friendship level. But I think also my mind never stops, and the minute I have a little bit of wine, it's kind of like I know it sounds odd, but it's like my meditation.
Me too.
And so every night when I cook at home, it is my, even if it's 4 o'clock and I'm cooking at home, Ethan, oh, you're drinking already? Well, yes. Yes, I am. It is like, there's something about
too.
me having a little bit of wine and that natural,
Me too.
it's just, it's like people do yoga and they meditate. My meditation is that calming, like it slows my head down from thinking about what Becky and I need to do tomorrow.
Right, and people are blown away when you say, yeah, I have a glass of wine every night, but I always say, look,
A glass.
it's
okay,
fun.
Let's be
Let's be real. Okay, let's be real.
Yeah, a
But
bottle.
okay, all right. I'm not driving, right? No, but truly, I mean, honestly, it is. It's a meditation. It's therapy for a lot of people.
It is.
And it's great. All right, so
Healthy
enough talk
therapy.
about wine.
Yeah.
Let's, not therapy.
No, I said healthy therapy. We're not
Yeah.
on the other, far
No,
side.
exactly. Let's go ahead and find the glass on your far left. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to swirl these around for a minute on the table, and then I want you to smell the wine, and we're going to talk, not yet, in just a minute here, we're going to talk about the aroma of the wine without indicating what varietal we think it is. Then we're going to taste it and talk about the flavor, and only after we're done tasting, I really want to then talk about what we think the color is, what we think the varietal is, and then just go from there.
Well, can I,
Yeah.
just a quick question. It's very interesting because in forgive me, I'm going to say this bluntly, is okay, you're born blind, there's no reference to color for you. So when we reference
Red
a
or
white
burgundy,
or
yeah.
burgundy or whatever, how are you associating to that? Does
You
that
know,
make sense?
it's a really good question, and I have associated with colors over my 31 years of being a blind guy just by listening to people and understanding vocabulary, so understanding that red is a really warm color and blue is a really cool color, but also my chemistry helps there. So red is what we call near infrared at about 700 or so nanometers wavelength of light, from about there to about 600, which is near the warm spectrum, which has the longer waves, whereas something like blue is very close to ultraviolet, and it's a lot cooler and a lot more staccato, if you will. So I use a lot of chemistry to understand color, which helped me.
Got it.
What do you guys smell here?
Citrus.
A lot of citrus.
And grass.
I'm going to show you a little party trick. We're going to go ahead and cover the glass with your hand that you don't like swirling with. We're going to do this for about 5 to 10 seconds, and it's amazing when we really volatilize what's going on in that glass. And then lift your hand off and smell. Wow. See, for me, when I do that, I really can hone in on the citrus more, a lot more pink grapefruit. Beautiful sort of stone fruit, underripe
You
peach.
can smell the acid too.
You can. You know, that's so interesting. You can smell that it's going to taste acidic.
Yeah.
With that said, let's taste it. So clean, right?
So clean.
bright, a little bit
Summer day.
beautiful minerals. This reminds me
Scallops,
of youth.
baby scallops.
Oh my God,
Scallops.
yes, scallops with like a buttercream,
Some
maybe a little
goat-
shallots.
Some goat cheese.
Ooh,
Oh.
yeah, if we just had like a
Casablanca
chef
olives.
ready on the
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
where we can
yeah,
do like
yeah.
a quick,
Let's go, chop
let's
chop.
go, boom.
Let's do it.
We can add that to the corporate thing.
Yeah.
That'll be
There you
great.
go.
Yeah, there you
Boom.
go.
The other thing I love is making food simple. So a lot of times when we say scallops, yes, that would be amazing. But one of the pairings that I do with this that just works really well and is so simple to do is just a really thin piece of prosciutto with with a little bit of quince paste and maybe a touch of chev, just the freshest chev you can find, rolled up around that. Just makes a beautiful presentation, and it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one big thing that I think is so important to think about in today's food and wine culture is that, a lot of us nerds, which I would definitely consider myself, my kitchen is my laboratory where I don't have to worry about someone else's insurance policy. So I'm always in there messing around, and I spend hours upon hours a day in the kitchen. And frankly, cooking for me is a truly therapeutic task. But I think for so many of us, we're busy, we've got kids, we're on the go. Thinking of easy things to prepare that are super simple, you can put out with a party, for a party and open a bottle of delicious wine like this. I think it's so important.
Absolutely.
So for me, there are like 3 main regions where I tend to taste wine in my palate. The first being the far front of the palate, right when the wine first sort of kisses your teeth, and then the mid palate, kind of right where your hard and soft palate come together, if you feel the roof of your mouth, and then the very back palate, right as you swallow and as the wine, what I call reaches the point of no return, just as it's going down your throat. I think that's where I tend to taste most of the herbaceous green quality here,
Yeah.
and in a lot of bigger wines that are not quite like this one, maybe a little bit more of that, that pepperiness, that really nice tannic quality, because you have little tubes that run from your mouth cavity right up into your the olfactory cavity, which is really where your olfactory bulb is housed. When you breathe in through your nose, you're smelling your surroundings, but when you exhale through your nose, you're smelling what's going on in your mouth cavity through those tubes that are right near the back of your throat. By the way, I just have to comment on the aroma of this room. This space just has that Napa air to it, and it smells so clean.
What is that? Yeah, I was going to say, what is Napa air to you?
Napa air in the spring, summertime is a little bit of sulfur from what we use on the grapes, a little bit of that gunpowdery smell, mixed with beautiful oak and madrone leaves that are sitting on the ground.
Wow.
I love that smell. When I came back in May, it smelled like new construction here.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But
yeah,
now it has that beautiful,
Yeah.
nice, refined Napa smell.
It smells like home. It's happy.
It does. It's a very happy smell.
I
happy
didn't
place.
anticipate with the blindfold on to actually have this enhanced
Yeah.
sense on my tongue. It's
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't. I feel like the back of my, because I'm not ever drinking with a blindfold on, so
Sure.
I just feel like there's this almost like when you squeeze your
Tingle.
finger, there's this
Yep.
tingle and
Yep.
this pressure.
You can kind of feel
I feel
that.
this interest I've never felt.
So now you're
before.
going to be cooking with a blindfold on because you
Yeah,
enjoy it, right?
yeah.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
and then I won't be chopping.
Burn.
Yeah.
I won't let you.
So what color do we think this is, guys?
White.
Is white.
Everyone
White,
agree this is a
yeah.
white?
Yes.
Or greenish.
Yes,
I should
yes,
say.
very much. How about varietal?
SB.
Sauvignon Blanc.
SB,
Yeah.
it's a Sauv Blanc. It's absolutely a Sauv Blanc. It's a 2017 Gibbs Sauvignon Blanc from St. Helena. And the vineyard on their property, Katie?
The Setna vineyard.
The Centena.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely incredible. I mean, really nice wine. Classic Napa Valley, classic St. Helena. So you're not getting the really over extracted sort of sweet character without the acid that you might get down South Valley down here. You can taste the terroir of St. Helena. You can taste that it's coming from beautifully lush valley floor, but at that cooler northern part of the valley. I just think it's an incredible wine. So my hat is off to Gibbs for putting this together and doing such a great job with it.
And all of these wines that, even though we're not attuned to the order and what he chose, all of our wines at the studio by Feast of Ford are available for purchase. If you
I
guys
love
want to
that.
come here, this, now that I know this is the Gibbs SB, this is a $20 Sauvignon Blanc
Yeah,
from
this
St.
is-
Helena Napa Valley fruit. It's perfection.
It's crazy.
nice.
And then the fact that you can pay as low as $20 and get something
Yeah.
like this, it's like
Yeah,
damn.
that's a
I mean,
no-brainer.
no brainer for me. All right, let's go on to wine number 2, you guys. By the way, control room, can I get a time check?
Chris, what's our time check right now?
Let's go ahead and
He's probably
smell.
got his headphones in.
40 minutes.
Oh, cool.
We're good up.
Yeah.
All right. Let's smell this wine. This is an aroma like no other. I mean, this is crazy. This is really cool. This is deep fruit, a lot of that licorice.
A lot of that
Oh,
red fruit.
this is heaven. This is my kind of wine. Cover this up with your hand. Do our little party trick here.
Our little party trick.
A lot of little party tricks up my
I
sleeve.
like that party trick.
Yeah. All right, hand off there and smell. Oh, man.
Very beautiful.
So this smells inky. So I've learned,
Does smell
knowing what the word inky means, literally is a very visual thing. But when I smell something like this, I get ink. It smells like full-blown, overripe berry compote.
Yeah.
Nice little tiny bit of cinnamon there.
Cassis.
A little cassis, and that licorice, that star anise that we smelled really pops here. This is just begging to be served with like really, really rich, delicious
Ribeye.
beef.
Short ribs.
One of my favorite things to do with this varietal is to serve it with with either beef tongue and polenta or short ribs and
Oh,
polenta.
get out.
So good.
Stop it. We haven't eaten yet.
So-
Don't go that far. Come on, Hobie.
Okay, I'll give you one of my favorite recipes in a minute after we all taste it. Go ahead and taste this wine.
Oh, sorry. I already went there.
Big surprise.
It's good.
Hobie, you gotta go quicker with us.
Quicker. I love it. There we go.
We don't last very long.
No, that's a really delicious
It's
wine.
really nice.
And
It's very
It's,
Smooth.
I would describe it as almost silky.
Silky.
Not buttery. That would be
Luscious.
that wouldn't be the right word because there's another varietal that would be much more apropos to the word buttery. But the acid here is balanced so nicely.
It
I get just this amazing fruit character, almost a fig and baked apple thing going on the front of my palate. And then in the back, it's like cherries jubilee. It's like cherries, the best cherries, a little bit of strawberry.
I get cherries a
There's a
lot.
little fat to it too.
There
I
is.
feel like there's a little not bacon fat, but there's like a little,
It's
like
smoky.
you said, that inky, smoky.
Yep. So this beef tongue that we do, we have a big green egg and we smoke it on the
Yeah.
egg for
Oh,
about
my.
4 hours,
Okay, I
and
want
you
that
just
recipe, yeah.
you just get the fat, just trickling through it. It's a very lean meat actually, with a lot of cartilage to hold it together, and then a nice rustic polenta done with butter and a little bit of cream, and then we finish the whole thing off with a caper cream sauce. So just your standard
Oh.
roux with heavy cream, added
Capers.
with a lot of capers.
So these
We
would
need
be
to,
get
okay,
from
we'll
the
do a dinner
capers.
night here
Let's do
with
it.
you.
All right.
That
I'll
sounds
bring the
fancy.
tongue.
Yes, I'll bring the tongue. I won't make a joke after
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
leave it as a family
Please.
show.
No. Yeah.
That says something.
Barbecue for sure.
Barbecue. Yeah, short ribs.
Yep, good. No, I can totally see the short ribs. So guys, what varietal do we think this is? Or what color, first of all? It's an obvious one.
Red.
Yeah, it's
Red
red
for
wine.
sure.
Beautiful red wine. And what do we get from the varietal? What do we think? It's got that smoke to it.
I think it's the
Syrah?
Syrah. because
Yeah, it's the
bacony.
Yeah.
It's the BY Syrah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny that BY Syrah is Moon Mountain, so it's going to be Sonoma Valley, kind of up above Sonoma Valley. And the difference between Sonoma and Napa Syrah is striking. And in Sonoma, you get this beautiful balance of acid and fruit and tannin that I just love. And Moon Mountain, by the way, is such a special place because it's in a very hot region, but it's elevated, so the temperature goes up very high during the day, but then it comes right back down at night.
Yeah.
So it's one of my absolute favorite appellations.
And BY's Vineyards, for those of you who've not been there, it's a stunning property. The caves are fabulous, and these hills that set on the western side,
Yeah.
get that sun later in the day, and they just cruise down, to the Sonoma Valley, and you just see this beautiful view of the valley floor below.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
so they're sitting on those vines, getting all happy, going, "Okay, I want the birds to eat me, and
Exactly.
I want to make a '97 Parker."
That's
I want
it.
to
That's
say-
it. Yeah.
But yeah, BY's, we love you guys. Your wine is killer, and we love drinking it.
That's great. One of my family members who just passed away last year grew up in Sonoma, and would ride his horse like twice a week in the 1920s or 1920s and 30s
Wow.
over Moon Mountain.
Whoa.
And said, like, that was before it was planted or anything. And he just says the views that you would get, you could sit at the top of the mountain and literally look down to Santa Rosa to your left if you're pointing north, and the vast expanse of Sonoma Valley to your right. And that, I mean, to me, being a kid on a horse in the 20s on Moon Mountain at like midnight sounds pretty special.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love that. All
We've
right.
had many a bottle of this,
Ugh.
and it's the first time I've ever tasted the silky smoothness.
Yeah.
Feeling.
It's amazing.
I agree with you.
And it's
I've never
so-
Well,
noticed
we
it
all
that much
we're
before.
not slowing down enough either. We're
Exactly.
running around and we're drinking our wine, but we're like,
This is
whoa, okay,
true.
now this is the first time that we're actually
Exactly.
sitting and respecting these wines.
And one crazy thing about the blindfold, one of the things that I love so much about this tasting, is it allows people on the go to slow down and say, whoa, this is what I might have been missing.
So maybe I do need to live with the blindfold.
Hey, there you go.
I need to slow
I'm
down.
gonna enforce the
All right,
policy.
enforce the yeah. All right, we're putting a new
20 minutes a day. Katie goes in the corner with her blindfold.
There we go.
And a bottle of
And a
wine.
bottle
What
of
is
wine.
wrong with
Yeah,
her
just
over
sit
there?
there.
She's got a blindfold. She's drinking. Yeah,
Yeah,
He's in
it's called
timeout.
the
That's
slow
a
method.
picture.
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. I must be really slow then. I'm permanently blind and always drinking. Let's go on to wine 3. We'll swirl it around here on the table. Oh my God, the nose on this wine.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's classic mineral, like classic. I happen to know where this wine's from, and you all do too, but we're not going to say it yet. It's classic to the region, and
Yes.
like so well balanced with oak. And let's cover it. We got to cover this wine. Got to do our little party trick here. So, Katie, tell us a little bit about what you guys offer in terms of food and bev products here at Feast It Forward. In terms of, you have how many wine partners?
We have 15 wine partners.
15 wine partners. That's
and
amazing.
yeah, and so we have at all times over 36 SKUs on
That's so
site
cool.
by the glass, flight, bottle. You can choose your own adventure and pick 4
That's-
wines or 6 wines. We
That's
are not
amazing.
a restaurant. I mean, we want people to bring food in from Gott's or
Totally.
Fatted Calf or Kitchen Door, Model Bakery, whatnot.
Yeah.
We are a family place. Come enjoy the wine and bring food in if you'd like. But
I love that.
up here in the live studio kitchen,
Right.
obviously this is from a demonstration standard when chefs
Sure.
and musicians come in and people are enjoying wine behind the cameras. So
Yeah. And then what other things? I know you guys have a spice partner, and
yeah,
those are
I mean,
amazing.
we
and
have
what other stuff do you have going?
a line of spices. We're talking about elaborating that brand from
Yeah.
like a cookware to a lifestyle product side
Sure.
and kitchenware and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean we're an online lifestyle and food network that's focused on bringing awareness to the causes that chefs and musicians and actors are inspired by,
great.
and a multitude of shows that Becky and I have been filming for the last 6 years are now
amazing.
live on feastoffour.com, and
It's amazing.
we roll out our show with Jacques Pepin. That is it's in the kitchen with Jacques, literally learning his tips and tricks. and it was
He's
an honor
amazing.
to have him in here. And
Yeah, we've done some work with the CIA and have talked with Culinary Institute of America, not the other one, and have talked with a lot of people about about their relationships with Jacques and Julia Childs and the whole thing. I mean, what amazing people, seriously, and the fact that you guys got to work with Jacques in this kitchen is
yeah.
Trailblazers.
that's a special
Yeah.
opportunity, and that's one to be cherished and to remember for decades and
Very
centuries
much
to
so.
come. So we've covered this wine, we've been swirling it for a while, and what's happening for me is it's opening up to this green apple quality, but it's not only green apple, it's more of like a browning green apple, like an apple that you cut in half and then sit on the counter for a couple of hours and then come
the
back
sun.
and smell it. It's kind of that oxidized, under the sun, exactly. Exactly, and there's also sort of a,
Are we drinking yet?
let's sip. Yeah. I heard that sip that you snuck of this wine. Oh, okay, all right. The camera doesn't lie. The camera doesn't lie.
No, I have not gotten here yet.
You're 3 drinks
Yeah,
behind.
yeah.
All right, let's taste
I've
it.
been sipping for quite some time.
Wow. So what's immediately striking about this wine is the classicness. It is textbook for what it is.
Totally.
It's got that really cool mouthfeel.
And
that's
much more mellow acid than
Totally.
the first.
Yeah.
totally, and it's, you know, it's again well balanced. It's very mellow. It's very much a food friendly wine. What do you guys think in food wise here? What would you pair with this?
I would love like a stinky cheese.
Yeah, I would have a little grilled salmon with this.
God, king salmon grilled is so nice, and it would go so well with this. The other thing that Justin and I often do is
Stinky cheese, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
stinky cheese would be good. Is pork belly that's been brined for a couple of days with a bunch of herbs and spices,
But
and then
that goes with everything.
yeah, that's true.
Just life in general.
That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. But I would agree that this is definitely textbook to the varietal.
It's textbook. And
This is.
Yeah.
You know, if you smell your glass, and this is a fun trick that I often implement in tastings that I do. If you smell your glass after you've sipped out of it, what's very cool that's happening is that the wine has coated the surface of the glass. So you have a very thin veneer, which can oxidize extremely quickly, and you get that sort of oxidized, almost peach strawberry smell.
Yes, I was getting that, the peaches.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
for me, it's like almost a peaches and cream
Yeah,
sort of thing. It's
yeah.
very creamy, but very, and like a buttery apple pie crust, like the best apple pie crust you'd ever taste. We got the pleasure of doing a very exciting, we're partnering up with Thomas Keller, doing a very exciting series of staff developments and staff trainings for him.
Awesome.
And he and I got talking about this varietal, not this particular wine, and he just said, you know, this is like grandma's pie crust. And that's what he's reminded of, and
Yeah.
this is actually one of the varietals that got him into cooking and doing what he loves.
Really?
Huh.
So, speaking of that, what color is it?
White.
White.
White vine. Yes,
White
indeed. Varietal?
Chardonnay.
It's got to be a Chardonnay. Yeah, it is. And this is the beautiful Oberon from Carneros.
And
Tell
let's
us a little
talk
about
about
this
this
wine.
for a second. Okay.
Yeah, please.
So Michael Mondavi Folio Project. These Oberon wines are all just the most ridiculously amazing priced wines, from $19 to $25.
Jeez.
This Los Carneros Chardonnay is $22. I'm
insane.
not like trying to do a sales pitch
No,
here, but I'm just
seriously?
making a statement about the fact that along with Gibbs and BY's, these wines are remarkable and true to their varietal.
You sold me on it.
No, but it's
No,
like,
it's
this
true.
isn't California fruit, right? We're not
Yeah.
dumping a bunch of different vats and barrels
Absolutely.
and blending. This is Los Carneros, and that you get that maritime influence, that beautiful light acid, bright fruit, like you said, the green apple.
You know what this would be killer with is oysters.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is a
Oh,
total
yeah.
oyster wine.
Well, and
for
we're
me.
drinking these at room temperature,
Right.
which is, you're trying to set an even bar for all of
Right,
these.
exactly.
So we're not, it's cold.
And that's a big deal. A lot of times when we chill wines down, people then touch the glass and they have this preconceived notion.
Right.
And that's what's so funny about sight, about eyesight, is that it gives us so much preconceived notion. Like, for instance, I've talked with people, good friends of mine, about individuals who will meet, and they'll say, "Hey, this person reminds me of Stephanie." And you're like, "What? What are you talking about? This is nothing like Stephanie." Oh, yeah, I guess they look like Stephanie, right? So it's this funny thing. I'm just giving you an example. It's this funny thing where we see something and we judge it. We see a beautiful dark as night wine, and the whole wine, the whole drop-down menu of Syrah and Petite Syrah characteristics pops into your mind, and then you don't really allow yourself to be
Right.
sort of untouched in a sense in terms of that drop-down that comes down. We do a lot of work with the Institute of Masters of Wine, and that was something that was said to me by Tim Atkin about the blindfold. Tim Atkin's a master of wine out of the UK. He said, when you don't see the wine, your drop-down feature where you can just pull out all these characters is gone,
Exactly.
which I think is really interesting and really, really sort of true. Yeah.
I would love to, just like as a take-home gift
Yeah.
for a corporate group, to have a Braille sheet of tasting notes.
100%. That's easy.
I mean, because that has always struck a chord with me when I drop the girls off at school
Totally.
and it has their room
Right.
and it has the Braille. Your sense of touch I've always touched Braille whenever I've seen it, and I've never been attuned to being like, oh my gosh, there's that bump and that bump and that bump.
I'll tell you a
I
funny
would love to have a tasting sheet and be like, just
Well, and our new vodka and gin that are going to be hitting the market.
Oh, tell me there's Braille
here in
on the
November.
label.
Yeah, there is.
Yes.
So that I'm not going to reveal the brand
Oh
name
my
yet, but
gosh.
the brand name, and then here's what's fun. There's going to be a fun message on the bottom, also written in Braille,
Oh, that's
only in
genius.
Braille.
Awesome.
But there should be, and we're still working out the details here, so bear with me. But there should be a way. I'm not going to reveal the way, but a sneaky way to reveal a print message that translates the Braille.
That's
So one funny story about Braille labels on room doors. I was in a space where I was working at one point. I said, yeah, you guys just built your space. I can't find the Braille. There's a standard spot that it's supposed to go. And then, they said, oh, we paid thousands of dollars to put the Braille in. I went out with the owner of the company. Yeah, the Braille was above the doors. The Braille is 10 feet, 12 feet. This is great. It's like, yeah, that's effective. That'll be
Oh
great.
yeah, that's super effective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this wine is just a textbook Chard. It's a textbook Chardonnay, and it's just, if this was chilled about 7-10 degrees cooler, I mean, it's delicious
I
now.
actually
but
wouldn't want it
I
too
wouldn't-
much
I wouldn't
cooler,
need it
actually,
cooler.
like, yeah.
And the other thing that I would do with this, and this is a trend that was started by people like Peter Michael and Marc Aubert, which is this trend of decanting Chardonnay. And I think this wine would also, it's been sitting in our glasses for the better part of an hour, just airing. But I really think that, if this was in a decanter for an hour, even half an hour before, it would explode even more.
Have you used our Breville decanter?
I have not.
So
You work with Breville?
Yeah, they're our countertop sponsors. So they have
Really?
a.
They're a client, maybe.
Are they? Oh,
They might
okay.
be. They
Well,
might be. I can't
Well,
confirm or deny.
So it's crazy. We've got one up here before you leave when we're done with this.
Oh, yeah.
So it actually every second equates a minute.
Amazing.
So if you put it in a minute, it's an hour.
That's insane.
And we have
How does it
done
work?
side by side comparisons. It pumps up the
Okay.
air through, and so it basically,
That's
it's
incredible.
It's nuts.
That's incredible.
And we have done some robust wines that are like they need a ton of time, or wines
That's
that are like not even
amazing.
bottled, and
Yeah.
it's.
That's
crazy.
insane. No, that's really cool. The other thing that I want to point out to viewers that I think is really important to remember with white wines, we often think, put them in the fridge just like you would a beer, take them out and drink them cold like that. What? The better the wine, the less cold you want to drink it. So
Right.
I really believe in, as a blind guy especially, the 20-20 rule as a general principle, which is pull the whites out 20 minutes out of the fridge before you want to drink them. And if you cellar your wine until about dinner time in your warm house, like most Americans do, put your reds in the fridge for about 20 minutes before you open them. I think it works out really well.
Swap.
I call it the 20-20. Yeah. All right, wine number 4. Let's go ahead and check him out, or her out, whatever it may be, in the glass on your far right. Swirl, swirl, swirl. I cheated and sniffed too
Okay,
early.
that's a him for sure. That's a masculine.
That's a him. Okay.
That is
Wow.
like there has been, the people coming in and tasting, and there's this comparison of there's a feminine, really,
Yep.
bright,
Yep.
light wine versus
Sure.
the robust, meaty, hearty, masculine, structured wine. And this,
I mean, this
meaty.
is textbook Up Valley for its varietal. Someone you guys have all seen this before. I've never seen this. Can you describe? Obviously, don't take your blindfold off. But can you describe the color of this wine? Well, actually, no. Let's not do that because we don't know whether it's red or white yet.
Oh,
Sorry.
I can smell it.
Oh, you all know. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody
I haven't
knows.
tasted it. I haven't snuck it.
I think we all know. How's this white Zinfandel?
Yeah.
Excuse me, it's actually an IPA, I think. Yeah, I smell the hops. Yeah, exactly. Now, what is the color on this? I mean, we all know it's a red.
Very
It's like deep red.
Amazing. Yeah, and the thing that comes out for me more than anything here is the fruit profile. So the fruit is this beautiful, like floral, but robust and austere berry mixed with fig, mixed with sandalwood, mixed with tea rose, mixed with. Hey, do you guys know what tea rose smells like?
I mean, I think I got
Tea
like
rose is a
perfume.
Oh,
beautiful
tea rose,
essential oil.
like,
It's
yeah,
like one of the
yeah,
most
yes.
incredible aromas.
Yeah.
And when I smell tea rose mixed with sandalwood, it totally reminds me of Napa
It
Valley.
sounds like
this
college.
varietal.
It sounds like a incense from college.
It could be. It could be. That could be where I learned about
Yeah.
that.
I was
Yeah.
burning a ton of incense and
Yeah.
So let's put your hand on the top of this glass. So let's just swirl around with your hand up top, just so we can really accentuate the aroma. And lift your hand off and smell.
Yeah,
It's just
and
insane.
definitely,
I mean,
to me, it smells tight.
It is tight.
It needs
This needs the brittle
a little
decanter.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never smelled this.
But no, I mean, crazy here. This has been open for over an hour. It's been in the glass for 40 minutes, and it's still tight.
Yeah.
Like this is, and that pays homage to this particular varietal. So we're going to take that slight tightness to our advantage in a tasting trick. I want you to do here. No, you're good. Take one small sip, and I don't want you to do anything with it but swish it around a little bit and swallow it. That's it. Don't breathe any air through it. Don't do anything that we normally would do.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Just drink it and then
Just
don't-
take a sip,
Drink it and swish it.
swirl it a little bit in your palate, and then swallow.
I feel like I taste the tea rose.
Yeah, tea rose. But what's crazy about this wine, without breathing any air through it, is I get a ton of vanilla. I get
That's
a
what
ton
I
of
was
that
just
oak
gonna
vanilla,
say, vanilla and cinnamon.
and you don't get that many tannins, right? I'm gonna show you a trick. We're gonna take the next sip. We're gonna swish it around the same way we did. You're gonna tilt your palate forward, tilt your head slightly forward, and I want you to try to breathe steadily through it for about 5 seconds.
Oh God, it's gonna come out of my nose. What do you want me to do?
That's good
Hold your
video.
lips closed and
That's
just
good video.
I'm taking a sip and I'm what?
Oh.
just like that through your palate.
okay.
Don't like take a breath of it, but like
Volatilize out of the glass and up. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, what's crazy for me when I do that, my retronasal tells me that there's so much going on there. So now I can taste the berry, the vanilla's gone away. And notice how the tannins are just
Yeah.
very supple and very light, but they
muted. Yeah.
but they popped out there when you
But
breathe
they're
through
there.
it.
More,
Yeah.
yeah, more.
Whereas when you sipped it
Yeah.
just straight out of the glass, they weren't there, right? They're just not there. You have to, even if a wine's been open for a long time, and this is a tight wine, you have to breathe some air through, especially these reds, to really explode that tannin profile in your palate. Take another sip this time. What I want you to do here is move it around your palate like you did, then breathe air through it, and then tilt your chin up and literally chew on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's tannic. Let's see. When you do it
Really
that way,
dry.
it may-
Oh, yeah.
it's dry.
Oh, gosh.
Really dry.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
For me,
Huh.
with chewing on wine,
That's-
which we don't normally do, is you blow up the tannins because you're
Huh.
bringing oxygen totally through it. And I mean, chewing was we were designed to chew, obviously, to help our systems digest. But the reason I think we're compelled to chew from infancy is to taste our food more. You know, obviously our bodies need it. We can't swallow a whole chunk of ribeye, but well, I don't know. Maybe if you were really savage, you could.
Right now, I might have been.
Yeah.
I might be able to right this second.
By the way, what would you pair with this wine?
Yeah.
Ribeye?
Something
Right,
big,
right,
something
right
fatty,
there,
something
right there.
good, yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
The other thing that I love. So, by the way, what varietal do we think this is?
Cab.
Yeah.
Totally Gibbs
Yeah.
cab from St. Helena. What do we have a vineyard designate on this?
It is the Three
Three
Clones
Clones.
Club.
Three
Cab.
clones. Awesome. 2014.
Yep.
Yeah. So 2014 was a cool year with not that much water. So the wines are super tight still and also very concentrated.
Very concentrated.
One of the things that I love, so this is definitely a cab, but one of the things
berry.
it is like tight berry and a little bit of pomegranate. One of the things that I love with cab, in addition to like a big nice steak, is a little risotto, just with mushrooms and that sort of thing. So like, what's a better
And
de-
has the butter too to kind of help with
Brown butter.
what's a better delivery device for sautéed mushrooms than a delicious risotto?
Oh,
That's what
yeah,
I say.
for sure.
Yeah.
Getting harder and harder.
We're hungry.
So yeah, no, I mean this is.
Mean.
Katie, I just want to thank you and Becky and Raina and James for joining us here. This has just been really incredible for us. We feel deeply honored and humbled. And anyone want to ask any questions or throw anything out there about the experience before we sign
Well,
off?
I thought I would say, that for those of you just tuning in, we are not crazy. We are sitting here with blindfolds on.
They have
drinking
one
wine.
blind guy
We
with
didn't
them.
decide-
That's why. Who is crazy, by the way?
Yeah, no, we love Hobie. Dr. Hobie Widler is a magnificent partner with SensePoint and Justin. Justin, thank you for being our angel pourer this
He's an
evening.
angel. That's the voice of an angel
Yeah.
used her.
And I think our intention for this evening was, kind of to debunk the myth of,
Exactly.
full sight, right? Is that I
Exactly.
think that you used the term of using the blindfold as kind of an eye opener.
It's an eye opener, and we really use what this tasting is designed to do is to show people how they can use their other senses so much more than they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And we want to do more of these for corporate groups, and this was kind of just a
Totally.
little teaser, but also in the sense of, no pun intended, but to discuss our vintner brands and
Right.
the experiences here. And I just, before we go, wanted to just touch on one interesting thing, and I thought this was really, when you first came here and we gave
Yeah.
you a tour, which
Yeah.
obviously was just like a discussion tour.
Sure.
You've obviously never seen what we have here.
No.
I mean, not only just have you not seen what we have here, you couldn't see what we have here.
Correct.
And Hobie explained to a T nearly, we are this, when you're blind, you don't know what a farmhouse is. You don't know what black is. You don't know what white is. You don't know, you have no point of reference.
Right.
And we came up here and he was describing just what this looked like and felt like, and it was just like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, because it was so interesting to me,
Okay.
because we use our site every day as an ongoing basis to understand products and
Yep.
our life, and it was like, holy smokes, like
Thank
this
you.
is, so I think that what you're doing is super special.
Thank
and
you,
we're
Katie.
very honored to work with you, and
Thank you. We're honored as well. I
and
really,
drink with
really
you. And you
appreciate
better
that.
cook up that ribeye
I
or
will.
whatever the heck you were talking about for the.
Oh, go ahead and take your blindfolds off if you guys want.
You can blindfold
By the way,
them now.
when you,
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, I don't want to know what you guys do with these blindfolds beyond this point, but they're
well,
yours to keep.
honey, I'm coming home.
Oh,
Or maybe I'm not.
Oh, man.
That was so much fun.
yeah, no, and thank you for
I know.
considering
I
us as
feel the
a.
mascara all over my face. I was like,
no.
oh, you should probably put
Hey,
the
you still look great. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you,
No
Hobie.
problem. No problem.
That's okay. Tammy
No, I mean-
Baker, this one's for you.
Look,
Oh my God.
what's been done here at Feast It Forward is just an amazing environment. For those of you who haven't been here in person, I mean, it's a really incredible place, and just a place for families, for relaxation, just such a friendly environment, such a cool just way to experience the community. And again, the word that I would use to describe you guys, Katie and Becky, is collaborative. I mean, you just collaborate with people so much across the board. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that we do. And
thank you.
Justin and I are both divinely honored to be partners. I mean, this is great.
We are very excited. And thanks again to Gibbs, Oberon, BYs, and
Yeah.
Stokes.
Thank you guys.
Check us out on feastofforward.com. Come down, buy these luscious wines, and we will be going live again soon, and hopefully with you again.
I'm
cooking up some
excited.
food.
I'm ready.
Cheers.
Let's do it. Cheers, guys. Say cheers.
Cheers, Justin. Cheers.
Cheers. Come on in, Justin. Get in the shot.
All right, we'll be live tomorrow at 1:30 with my 5-year-old Quinn. We'll be cooking something up family style. So
Oh, man.
thanks for tuning
I'm
in.
going to have to watch that one. Hey, by the way, really quick, one final note. Smell your Syrah glass and smell the brown sugar. And that's
Oh, the
all
Syrah?
oxidation. And that's really cool maple sugar. And it did not have that when you smelled it 20 minutes ago.
Wow. All right, we're going off air because I got to clean up this mascara. Bye, guys. Good night.
Cheers.
Oh no, I think you should stay that way.